to the Product House, where two friends nerd out about a product. So how are you feeling today, Kiet?
Very cold. Here in Melbourne, it's sub 10 degrees at the moment. So really...
I'm very not ready.
Really getting into winter at the moment. It's been a couple of weeks since we did the Everything Agile meetup. And
Oh yeah, true.
also been a very long time since we did our last episode. So I hope you're feeling as excited as I am.
Extremely excited. Not exciting about the winter, to be honest. Not really a winter person. And I'm actually just coming back from a holiday from somewhere really, really warm. And so it's a big thing for me to adapt. However, I'm really excited about this episode because in the last few episodes, I guess, the meetups and the episode and also the blog in between, we're really focusing on talking about the system thinking and why system thinking is important to product managers. And then we'll briefly kind of explain a little bit about the whole influence dynamic map that we created. So for audience who I guess probably also forget. So influence dynamics map, which is we call it IDM, kind of throughout most of times, is actually a map we kind of created aiming to helping other product professionals similar to us to kind of understanding influence complicates product environments. So I guess it's the intent for the model is actually not only about system thinking, it's actually trying to bridge a little bit more product thinking and system thinking together to when we assess a certain scenarios. And then we feel like in the last few times we're having really doubled down about the system thinking because we feel like that is something that is a little bit unintuitive for most of product managers, at least like for people like me. However, when we're actually going through the framework with the other product managers, we get a lot of questions around, then what about our bread and butter? What about all the product thinking? So that's why we actually decide to do this particular episode.
Yeah. So just a reminder of the model itself. If you kind of build a mental model, it's centered around product dynamics in the middle, and there's two levels of dynamics above it and two levels below it, right? The two above it being macro, organizational and macro, and the two below it being team and individuals. And across those 5 layers, you map your constraints, what's within your sphere of influence, and try to kind of reframe some of those constraints into things you could potentially influence as well. And as Charlotte said, we're really talking about this episode, product and product thinking. So focusing on the product layer, how vision, strategy, execution, and operations all come together, and how you can lead through it without formal authority. So let's kick off with a question, Charlotte. What exactly is product thinking, and how do you see it as different from systems thinking?
Oh, that's actually a really great question. And I think just similar to the system thinking, when you look online, I think you are going to find so many different definitions. But I think at the core, in my language, I think product thinking is really about deeply understand the problem you are solving, ideally a product problem, I guess, you are solving, and who you are solving for. And really make sure whatever the solution or product you create actually deliver the value to the customers and market. So, like in summary, is what's the meaning of being a product manager essentially?
Yeah, spot on. It's at its heart, it's very kind of user centered, right? And asking why, who, how, and what.
Yeah, and sometimes, and then it is actually the reason why we're thinking is contrast with system thinking, which we actually cover in the previous episode. Again, this is another kind of reminder. If you forgot about what framework look like and what it is, feel free to go back to listen to a previous episode. And also now, we also wrote a blog just to helping you to be able to better visualize what's actually this model kind of look like on paper as well.
We'll make sure to drop the links in the podcast as well.
Yes, 100%. But I guess in contrast, like a problem thinking is focusing on the particular product problem itself. However, the system thinking actually zooming out and trying to looking at the all complex interdependency between these particular problems within other kind of dynamics. So, however, in my head, there's another Venn diagram in my head. They have a lot of overlap, actually. So,
love a good Venn diagram.
Yeah, okay, maybe there's another block. You guys are going to see a Venn diagram between the product thinking and the system thinking. They come together. It's almost a little, in my head, it's almost a little bit like a left brand and right brand. They have overlap. When you're thinking about problem, you can't really, I feel like it's very hard for anyone for not thinking a problem from the original problem perspective. However, when you apply both of these kind of thinking together, like a product thinking and system thinking together, it just provides you a fuller perspective. It helps you to understand the like a particular product, and then you're also helping you to understand all the ecosystems around it. And ideally, that will provide you kind of a fuller perspective. Maybe can I give an example around it, because I find it can be quite theoretical.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
if
please
we
do.
So, for example, like when probably a lot of your managers, similar to my managers, probably just asking you to consider, can you actually prioritize an AI feature into your roadmap? So when you actually, if I only apply for product thinking to make these particular decisions, what will happen is I will try to thinking about, oh, does this who is this feature for? Does this product feature actually align with my existing product vision and strategy? How does it contribute value to my current existing customer and potential new customer? And then, or do my team have the capabilities, and do I have machine learning kind of expert in my team to actually be able to achieve that? Probably if I only apply this product level thinking, it make it really easy to come to a conclusion that this is a complete waste of time, because it doesn't contribute to my current product at all, and then my team doesn't have any kind of skill set. And then the answer is a very obvious no to me in this situation, in a lot of situations. However, if in this situation I try to apply a little bit system thinking into consider this problem, I might start to realize to say, hey, my organization currently is growing. However, it's really threatened by one of the biggest competitors in the market. And then because of this particular AI feature, my manager looking for, and our senior leadership looking for, is almost become a table stake to be part of this industry now, because one of our competitors actually have it. Even they are not perfect, but they have it. But then at the same time, while my team don't have the AI capability, number one, they're extremely keen to learn, because they are also worried about their job security for their personal growth. They're really keen to learn. And number two is, as an organization, we do have a kind of center of excellence with all the other kind of where the data scientists and AI experts sit. And it's actually quite easy for me to actually borrow resource from them. Again, this is probably still not the full picture, but after thinking slightly different angle from what is outside from my product particular world, and to the bigger, for the thinking about from the organization world, and maybe even thinking from the market world about where AI currently is in the like how they're impacting the world. And then I drill down to thinking a little bit more about my teams, and I actually come up with a very different decisions about is building these AI features. My boss asked me to adding to a roadmap seems to have been irrelevant to my product visions. Makes sense. It would be a very different decisions, I guess.
Yeah, it's such a interesting and topical example. So thank you for sharing that one.
Yeah. Well, actually, Kate, I also have a question for you then. Maybe do you want to address the elephants in the room then? Because this is actually the questions most of the people asking us is, where is the product thinking in our influence dynamic map model? Did we actually forget about it?
When we kind of designed the model, it really was intended to be across all of it. But being product managers ourselves, we do encourage when people start using the influence dynamic map, we encourage them to start with the product layer. And we just feel like as product managers, it's the natural place to start, because it's your day in, day out. It's your most immediate thing that you think about.
So to be clear, that's where the product thinking, I guess, hiding is the product layer, the dynamic, let's design.
The crux of it is in the product layer, but we're not saying it's divorced. When you think about your team, you don't think about kind of your product dynamics. Or when you think about the macro, you're not thinking about your own product.
Okay, that makes sense. Actually, then can you help us, I guess, me included, yeah, to
Yeah.
go a little bit deeper in the product dynamic and then and this particular layer, just help me and our audience to understanding how actually to using these tools to explore deeper within this dynamic and apply product thinking to resolve our day-to-day problem.
I'm gonna to just help illustrate the topics we're going to cover. I'm going to use a framing of four pillars. The first one being vision, second one being strategy, third one being execution, and the fourth one being operations. Right, and different people may call it slightly different things, but it's just a mental model to help us kind of illustrate the distinctive points that you go through as a product manager as you kind of both progress through your career, but also different parts of aspects of the product. So the first one being product vision. It covers your purpose, your winning aspirations. The strategy part, that's really where it comes to life in terms of taking something that's in your head to setting a plan and making it real, right? And so what's your mission? What are you trying to achieve by when? Who's the customer? Where do we play? How do we win, right? When it comes to execution, I think for most product managers, this is where they kind of live and breathe. It's the people process tools of actually getting...
Is that executions or operations?
Execution,
Oh,
right?
yeah, sorry, okay. I was confused about these two, so I got a
yeah,
follow-up question around that.
The execution part of it is the doing, actually doing product, right? Everything from user research through to problems, through to understanding opportunities and actually delivering and creating the product to go live, testing, iteration, rinse and repeat. It's the what and the when, right? Whereas when you're kind of dealing with one product team, that is rinse and repeat. You kind of keep doing it, but within an organization, there are some kind of systems. If you have 2 product teams or 5 product teams, those teams have to coordinate, right? And so I guess the way I think about it in my mind is all the things that need to be in place for product to work, but isn't actually the day-to-day of a kind of single individual contributor product manager, right? Things like funding, things like hiring people, things like what are the standards we need to kind of meet.
Okay, that's actually really interesting. I actually really like your framing about vision, strategy, execution, operations, and then I probably will go a bit deeper around that because I saw a similar. I think we saw a similar kind of framing around this before from Marissa Paris. I guess one of the map around the product manager's career growth. I think her version is very similar, but I think she combined vision and strategy together, and I think she has operations as well, which is something we can also share, like go a bit deeper later when we're talking about, I guess, some of the I guess career around the product manager in this sense, and also when we probably share that in our linking group, because I think recently she actually reshared something around that. But I guess my question around that is because in her version she actually combined the vision and the strategy. So I guess what's your definitions between them, and also how to organizations come up with a great visions, this is a very loaded questions, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's a good point, and just to touch on your point about operations, it is probably the newest area of the lot, and that there isn't kind of a standard, well understood definition of it as well. So it's a good call out. So the distinction that I make between a vision and strategy is anyone can come out and kind of set a vision, and until you actually put a view in place to make that vision real or attempt to based on a best guess, it's just vision. And so there is this distinct thing between this is where we aspire to be versus to aspire to that we need to be somewhere, do something, put a plan in place, and that's kind of the strategic side of it, right? Which is where do we play, how do we win, who are our customers, right? And in my line of work, I spend a lot of time helping craft product visions for teams.
Yes, please share how to create a new one, because this can take forever, like this exercise.
I worked with a really, really good product coach, a guy by the name of Lee Malcolmson, who's out of the Gold Coast. And through working with him, he really helped me understand the nuance of what is vision, and because a purpose is kind of a reason for being, right? Typically, it's like it's a very kind of airy-fairy message, whereas vision needs to be, what does the world look like? Vision, right? What does the world look like once you've solved your problem? And that kind of framing really helped me understand when I create a vision statement, people need to be able to see what the world looks like when it's done. So, and at the same time, when I do my visioning exercises, I tend to ask the team or ask people what is the world they want to live in once they've solved that problem, right? So it could be as simple as I want to live a world where I don't have to spend more than 5 minutes brushing my teeth every day, right?
Yeah, very specific, which is yeah. But you put the vision. That's why I feel I like the word vision now, because it's like it's a vision. Like you can see it. It's something it's tangible. Something you can see it, like and feel it in the future.
Some of my personal favorite examples, Uber. So they don't say, we want to be the biggest. Their vision statement is we ignite opportunity by setting the world in motion. Right. Oxfam, or a just world without poverty, or something a bit more grounded, right? To make people happy. Disney, right? It doesn't suggest anything around who their customers are, where do they play, how they win. It's just, this is how we imagine the world to be once we are successful.
And generally, I feel like they are a little bit far away as well. It seems like it's almost feel like not necessarily unachievable, but it just feels very, very difficult to achieve.
Yes, it's
like
definitely
as well.
A stretch statement, unlike a purpose, which perhaps you could never achieve, right?
Yes, which is a very sad kind of fact in a sense. But what about missions then? So where does mission statements actually sit? And also one quick correction before you dive into it is, I think the Marissa Perry's language is, I think she grouped vision and mission into something called strategic. She called it strategy, and she called it something called tactical, and then there's operational. So I just want to correct what I mentioned before. So go back to where we are. Is where does mission statement sit? Are they actually part of the strategy?
The mission statement very much is strategy, because you're starting to put in place some of the constraints that how you want to achieve the vision, right? And one common mistake people often do is they confuse vision and mission statements.
I confuse it all the time.
To be fair, it's unless you're a big nerd about this stuff like me, it's the distinctions are quite subtle, right? But in my mind, a mission statement is time bound, and is very specific about what you want to achieve in that time period.
Yeah.
And one of probably the most powerful and famous ones, John F. Kennedy, "We choose the moon" speech, right? His mission statement was to land a man on the moon before the end of the decade and bring him safely back to Earth. To do something by some time, right? So I think that's where having something that's tangible starts to bleed into that strategy space, which is kind of that segue for us.
Okay, I have a follow-up questions regarding to one comment you made. You say, yeah, well, a lot of people confused about it unless it's beginners, like yourself. But my question is then how important it is to distinguish them, and also the other follow-up question around that is how much time do you think a product team should really spending on doing this exercise?
Going back to product thinking, as product managers, we want to test and iterate to see if things are still relevant, right? And in my mind, there are different cycles of purpose, mission, and vision, right?
Yeah.
The vision statement is a lot longer standing than a strategy, right? Or a mission statement, right? You may want to revisit your mission statement maybe every couple of years, just see if it's still relevant. It may kind of imply who's your customer, where do you play, how do you win, right? And that stuff changes. Whereas the world you want to live in when you solve your problem, that typically won't change until you've actually solved the problem, right?
I see. Okay, so it is important to distinguish it is because the time frame for them is different, and you might kind of doing different like review them in different time and different scenario in that sense. And I guess the other reminder around that is in the strategy layer, they are more than just mission, isn't it? There are actually a lot of other tools and things in different time frames that like they may require product manager to deal with them.
Yeah, spot on. So I guess back to your previous question around how much time you should dedicate to
Yes.
your vision statement. In the work that I've done in the past, typically because you've got a constrained amount of time to get the team together to kind of form, storm, norm, perform, we might kind of dedicate a half-day workshop to actually form that vision statement. But if you read like Simon Sinek's Start With Whys, it's a great book, right? And the process he employs is you do a similar process with some of the longest serving members of your organization, right? And his guide was, it could be employees who have been there a decade or more, who understand the soul of the organization, right? Not everyone has 10 years plus to actually dedicate to kind of crafting and forming a vision or why statement. But even that process he employs is over weeks, if not months, right? So you can take either ends of that spectrum, but it's important to start with the draft and test and iterate it.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. The only reason why I'm asking them is because I personally have been sitting in so many of these mission, vision, strategy sessions, and I facilitate a few, set up quite a lot. But then one of the pattern I see is we're spending a long time to doing that. However, it becomes a one-off and set and forget exercise when we go back to our day-to-day work, and then we literally I don't think we're using them a lot in our, I guess, day-to-day work afterwards. So that's the reason why I said, well, what's the kind of practical time to do that? But like personally, I actually really take my time. So that's why I actually prefer to do this exercise instead of like a 2 days kind of strategy day and just knock it out. I actually prefer to do this exercise a bit slower, but I try to do it a bit more regular. Like but again, I don't know if this is the best practice or not, but like for example, if I with my product teams, and generally we're spending time to discuss and debate about our product visions and missions. But as you say, sometimes it really depends on the size of the team. I trying to like involve everyone in the team and trying to co-create this together. And then sometimes I might start with a little bit draft, but I really want to make sure the end outcome is everyone has a fingerprint and have a contribution to it. But then generally after that I will immediately following up with a kind of a next level of strategy kind of planning, like come up with a product roadmap, and then doing OKR exercise, and starting to then follow that after doing individual goal setting exercise, because I think the reason, and that becomes a really like full-on process for them, like throughout the year. Why are they delivering? The reason why I'm doing that is because I find it sometimes it's hard. You only have a vision and mission statement, like without breaking it down to something very tangible to the team and to individually. I just feel like it's quite important to break it down to some tangible features and goals for the teams and individual that will actually help, like align with the vision and mission that we agreed before, and then also having a working cadence, I guess, to review them as well. But maybe that's kind of a link with what you're going to say next about strategy and executions as well.
Yeah, I love the example that you've kind of played through, right? And I think you hit on a really important point, which is it's kind of waste of time if you don't actually use it, right? And the first and foremost, the fact that you have a vision statement is kudos to your own capability, and not every product team has a vision, right? Most powerful way I've seen it used is when a team has a decision to make, right? And a trade-off between option 1 and option 2. And in this example, it was a product team that wanted to prioritize a particular feature, which meant that they had to prioritize experience over monetization because that was their short-term goal, which was we need to hit XYZ kind of KPI, right? And it was actually the team member that brought up, okay, love that. Here's our customer, here's our vision. Does it actually contribute to that, or are we actually taking away from where we want to be because of short-term goals? And they were kind of just able to reframe where they were versus kind of the grand scheme of things through having it there and having that conversation earlier when, you know, arguably the pressure wasn't there and they were able to be more of idealists.
Yeah, okay, that's actually a really good point. I think the value of the having a visions and is for the team to be able to challenge that, to actually calling out what we do day to day actually difference or is like or moving towards with the vision. That's actually some very powerful things there. Actually, just for the time being, I just really wanted to move on to the probably next dynamic because I'm concerned about the time. I know we touched a little bit around, quite well, not only a little bit, quite a lot actually around the difference between vision and missions, and we'll talk a little bit about how mission is actually part of strategy. But is there any other kind of key element in the strategy layer that, as a product manager, we need to be thinking about or like aware of?
I draw a lot of inspiration from Cascade of Choices, a framework that is from the book Playing to Win by Alan Laffey and Roger Martin. And in their book, they lay out strategy as a kind of cascading set of questions from winning aspiration, where to play, how to win, what are the capabilities you need, and the business systems. And so for us, the kind of three questions you really want to answer in the strategy layer are, what are your winning aspirations? We kind of mentioned it's equivalent of the mission statement. So where do you play? And really this is about the mind of the customer, right? Who's your customer? Which segments within their mind or you know, classic marketing positioning, which segments are you targeting? Which and you know, within that segment, does the customer see you as the leader or the challenger or something else? What are the industries? What are the markets? Right. So what's the where do you want to play? What's the chessboard? How do you win? Where are your current chess pieces? Where do you want them to be, given the choices of where you want to play? One of my favorite quotes is Jensen Huang, right? And he kind of mentioned that the pivots that his company's done over the many years, starting out kind of really focused in gaming, right, and to now kind of really just leading the AI space, right? And to paraphrase him, he said that if you've spotted a macro trend, you know, how do you position yourself in the vicinity? You don't have to make the right choices, but you need to be in the vicinity to catch the falling apple when it falls, right?
I really like this saying as well.
So if in similar vein, if you're the leader or the challenger in your segment or your market, how are you going to actually be better, faster, and cheaper, right? Is your layout of your chessboard actually defensible, right? You know, if you're just wanting to be the cheapest, then could someone else who has better economies of scale come in and be cheaper than you?
Yes, people doesn't have the tariff problems will be.
Yeah.
Yes.
Macro. And how do you actually know your customer and how do you get their attention as well, right? The other two things that the Cascade of Choices touches on is capabilities, the people, processes, and tools, and what are the business systems and operating models that you need in place, right? And the description of business systems is probably more akin to the Melissa Perry description of product ops, which is the scaffolding that enables product to work, right? As opposed to probably an Airbnb description of product operations, as an example, which is more everything that the product team can't handle.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I think even this is under the strategy kind of pillar. I do feel like they are very, very linked with operations in as well. So yeah, but probably that shows that how hand in hand actually they are. I guess we maybe should we move on to the executions and the operations, and I think you probably already touched that a little bit. Is the difference between executions and operations as well. However, the terminology itself sometimes can get a little bit confusing. Do you just wanted to, I guess, remind the listener what's the biggest difference between execution and operations?
They're closely related, but they're distinct in that execution is really about how we support ongoing delivery, and things that are not the primary focus of the product team kind of fall into the operational space, right? And it's like an athlete, right? They're everything in execution is kind of what they need to do and perform on the day of the game, right? Whereas the operational sides is the things like their diet plan, the training schedule. The clear segue from strategy into execution is, I think in strategy you kind of plan and define what are you going to measure, and then when you go into execution, it's do that thing and we'll measure it and see where we go, and then we can kind of improve from there.
Yeah, no, I think that makes. I really like the example you mentioned around the athletes. It's on the day or all the jobs actually around there, and then to helping you success. And I feel like there's a big one part is about time frames, as we say, and then I guess the other thing around the executions and operations. Two fun fact, I guess. Number one is that if we go back to the Melissa Paris kind of model, I don't even know what's the name of the model, to be honest. It's funny. And I remember there was a big difference between senior individual contribute role, which I think is a senior PM, to director, which is product leader's role, director's role. The biggest difference between them, it's not about the amount of strategic intent. The biggest difference between these two roles is between the executions and operations. So which is very interesting. Basically, what they telling me is the biggest difference between being a good the career path points you probably need to make between do you want to become a super IC or do you want to become a product leader. The difference is actually not behind your strategic intent, which is all the vision and strategy things you mentioned about. The biggest difference between them based on the model is between your executions, your interest and ratio and the time you want to spend in executions and operation. Is do you want it to be the person to doing the running every day, or do you want it to be the person to actually trying to create the environment to helping all the athletes to run faster every day? So I think that's a kind of a fun fact since we mentioned about model. Let's just kind of close that one out. And the other thing I think I'm personally interested about execution and operation, because you mentioned about measure it. I just remind me of the coach time. One of my favorite tools is actually a Spotify health check. I feel like it's probably a really good tool to really help me to understanding the effectiveness about the execution and operations within the product teams mainly as well.
It's an oldie but a goodie, right?
Yeah, 100%. Even I heard Spotify, it's not really, well, they have never really using Spotify model except for all the people actually excited around that. Actually, do we want to do a quick summary of the model now before we kind of move on to answer the next elephant in the room regarding to customer?
Yeah, sure. And it was a little bit of a breeze through it, and I really wish we had more time to kind of deep dive into each an individual topic, and maybe somewhere we'll do. But
we can. It's our podcast. we can do as many episodes about it as we want.
Yeah, I think we're probably testing people's attention span, kind of stretching it past an hour anyway. So, but I guess we see the interplay between vision, strategy, and execution as picture it as three continuous feedback loops that feed into each other, right? With the execution loop evolving more rapidly in a time frame, anything from 1 to 6 weeks, depending on your context. If you're running Scrum, 2 weeks, as an example. If you're in a crisis, it could be daily or hourly. But you've got rapid or more relatively rapid feedback loops. The strategy itself should evolve with what you kind of find out about your customer and your market and your industry trends, typically maybe 6 weeks to a quarter, and maybe smaller for more nimble organizations and longer for larger enterprises, but really no less than, on the extreme, every 2 years you need to evolve your strategy, right? Your vision statement rarely moves. Should be perhaps reassessed for relevancy every couple of years, and kind of and your own personal or your team's alignment to that vision as well, right? So, whereas the operational layer, which supports your strategy and execution, should be updated kind of as needed, in my opinion, but not at a pace that's moving so quick that you kind of cause change fatigue with your people.
Yeah, okay, that really makes sense. And also the other reminder for the audience who are listening, if you're product managers and then you realize there's a particular one area like you are not familiar with, like you just not have visibility with, either it's the vision or strategy of your team, because it's a little bit unlikely for you not to be hands-on within the execution operation. But maybe if you're a product manager, product leader, you realize regard if there's any part of these elements you are not kind of you have blind spot in, or you feel like you don't have enough information in, maybe that's your opportunity to explore a little bit more. So again, very similar to that's the whole purpose for the influence dynamic kind of a map. It's a map. It's really just a indicator to probably a reminder for you. Hey, there's actually a little bit other land and other context within this area. You might want it to collect those information to helping you make decisions there. All right, I'm going to ask the other elephant in the room. I feel like we'll ask a lot of hard questions, because I think this is something else people rising up in the recent meetup as well. Is, all right, we'll talk a lot about product. However, where's the customer? Did we talk enough about our customer apart from the mission statement we briefly mentioned about it?
Yeah, and I think once again this is our bias as kind of product people and product thinking, right? And by definition, it really is a customer focused way to think. And when we kind of created the model, I think it was a given. Yeah, so it's supposed to cut across all the layers, right?
Yeah.
And we kind of had an internal debate about whether it fit in one box or kind of cut across as well. But I think there is one hot take that I'd like to introduce, which is it doesn't sit in the vision. And the vision is what you want to achieve with the world at large. And when it kind of comes to strategy, that's when you start thinking about, okay, for the world we want to build, who's the customer we want to make the biggest impact with first, right? So,
interesting.
But horses for courses. Happy to be challenged and proven wrong as well.
No, I actually feel like that helped me to distinguish between visions and strategy more in this way. Because to be very honest, I always confused between like vision and mission. I feel like the way how you're thinking about vision is what the world will look like if you achieve what you achieve. I feel like that's actually a really great way to distinguish between them.
I guess the point I was trying to make is the picture you want to paint for the future can be the same, and your customer who you want to target may change and may be different depending on what you find out about feedback about your product or your hypothesis of problem.
All right, maybe I will because since we talk a lot about the vision and strategy and where customer hiding behind that, I might just share a little bit more about my view about where customers are in executions and operations and some of the stories around that. If you remember in the first episode, I kind of really strong about customer is the only battle I don't want to feel. I don't want it to kind of lose in, because I think that's something so important. It's because in the day-to-day execution, I think that's where you'll be able. The only way for us to be able to measure if our product is success or not is, apart from some of the statistics, is actually the actual feedback. That's one of the most valuable thing is actually the feedback from the customer. So I actually feel like it's actually quite important for us to have the right executions and operations, I guess the ecosystem, to make sure we have regular customer feedbacks coming in. And I actually have a very personal stories about how this could go wrong, for the organization when we don't have the right kind of executions around it, and what's the impact for the business as well. So I think this is probably about 10 years ago. I was actually working for an online accounting kind of software company. And the goal for the company is actually quite straightforward. It's really around, for that particular product at least, it's really just around try to automate the whole annual tax return process and make it frictionless for the small business user. Because I think during the time, that was the time everyone still every company using accountants, and then they were all trying to using a lot of paper, a lot of kind of invoice, going to the accountant's office and trying to do tax return is a really, really painful process. And then and during the time there was a really, really kind of a strong competitors coming to the market, and which was specifically targeted for the small medium kind of I guess the enterprise, and which really, really winning the market share during the time. So the organization that I'm working for feel really, really threatened around that, and they have the technology and the skill set to do that. So basically, they come up with this project goal is to say, hey, let's come up with something better. And I think and that's super obvious. It's a very, very aligned strategy all the way top down from the organization, and that everyone being hiring into the program have a very, very clear view about, we know exactly what we need to do in the situation. And then they did hire some of the best kind of engineer, product teams, and the strategy teams together, and then basically have a war room towards that. And very funny thing is, with all that everyone's efforts and all this war room, we do have a really, really great product. We actually have a product, literally have ability. We get access to the ATO portal. One of very early kind of provider get access to ATO portal, building up the whole system, and have ability to be able to click one button, pull all the data from the ATO API, pre-fill the whole kind of annual tax statements, and then be able to complete essentially users' tax return. And then we basically waiting for all this big champagne celebration, because we feel like there's no way our product is not going to, I guess, win the market. However,
I'm feeling the punchline come through.
Well, it's like that's the life about building a product, right? So every single time is really a roller coaster. So we're just waiting. Everyone's looking at the dashboard. Everyone's waiting for this great feedback, but nothing happened. And then nothing happened. And then this new particular product, the adoption for this new product is actually really low. And then the people still prefer the older versions, the desktop version, older version of the product, or they're using the competitors product instead of ours. And this is a really, really confusing thing. So what happened is, one of the I guess the UX designer in the team kind of just asked a question to say, hey, should we just go out to ask our customer why they don't using our product? And then that's when we had to have serious conversation about, okay, then who is our customers in this situation? So we said, well, but then people in the organization were quite defensive to say, I've been this area for over whatever years, and then I was talking to this business owner all the time. This is exactly the feature they wanted. But then what actually happened is, we went to, let's just say, let's see with all the customer. Let's see with the accountant who are preparing the tax for them. Let's see with the actual small customer. But when we sit with all the go to visit the accountant who are preparing this tax return for the organization, we realize the way how this accountant during the time 10 years ago, how they make money is they charge by time and the effort they do. So they actually really hate the product. They feel like the product actually made them stupid, because before, the whole process, the whole workflow is surrounded by sending reminder to their customer. So they bring in particular types, all these paper information to the office, and then they're spending weeks to doing the data entry about this receipt, and then checking again. But now you have one kind of click button. They feel like they can't have any contribution to the whole process. They feel like they lose control to the whole accounting process anymore, and they make me look extremely stupid. And that's actually the reason why they actually advise their customer, their small, like medium business, do not using these tools, because these tools basically make them lose control and they have a higher audit risk for them in the future.
Yeah, such a great example of defining all your customer segments and why it matters, right? Because stakeholders is just as important, right? They are customers as well. So.
100%. And also the whole art of continuing talking to your customer and asking for the right questions as well. Because I'm pretty sure if we ask small business the question to say, hey, how's your experience using our product? And then at some point, someone might mention in the conversation to say, hey, actually our accountant just asking us not using your product because of what we just described. So, probably just to finish the story before we move on to the next thing, because in case people are curious, we do taking all these customer kind of insight on board, and we're starting to make our platform a little bit less friction, but in a good way, because we're starting to consider a lot about accountants' need and starting to adding a lot of not necessarily manual check, but audit check into it to make sure bringing some control back to the accountant's hands in that sense. So we should make it a much more kind of I guess the fit for purpose product for both the accountant and the end customers in that sense. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Shall we go to closing thoughts or?
Yes, I think we should. I think we do have a little bit part about the framework. It was about the zoom of influence. Maybe we can just really kind of take that as in a part of a summary as well. I guess it's more about all the product managers. When you're coming, depends on the level that you are. You generally you probably will have a lot of control and influence in the product layer. You probably have more control in this layer than you think you are. And then, however, I don't know if I think we touched enough about the career path there. So, but with the different level, I guess you are in your career path, you probably will realize you have a different level of constraints and different level of zoom of influence as well.
Yeah, and I guess the line that I often use when coaching kind of mid-junior product managers is you will get to a certain point as you're approaching that kind of manager grade where you max out your own individual contribution. And the challenge is how do you enable others to kind of maximize their impact as well, right? Whether it's through coaching, training, improving process tools, etc., etc.
Okay, that's a separate episode we wanted to do. I don't want to start there because I have a different opinions around that, because what you say is the assumption that every single individual contributor, the only path for them is to become like management. I actually feel like now at the moment in the current, regarding if you are in the enterprise or a small like business world, there's actually a lot of more options for the individual contributors there.
And let's have that conversation another time, because it could be a rabbit hole as well.
It's 100%.
I don't disagree.
Okay, let's have a closing thought then, because it's a very, very long episode so far. So if we have anyone zoom out from this midway of the episode, what will be the one thing you really wanted to make sure they actually take away?
Yeah, for me, it's even though being product managers, a lot of times you're kind of neck deep in execution. I think don't think about strategy and vision as separate from your execution. Because even if you're doing a great job and your strategy is shit, you're pushing a boat uphill, right? But if your strategy is great and you happen to occupy a niche with no competitors, you just need to be good enough for now, right? So don't think about your execution as separate from your strategy and vision.
Yeah, that's actually a really good one.
How about you?
It's hard to have one. But let's try. But I think my biggest one probably is around don't separate the thinking things, just applying product thinking or system thinking. You actually will need both, I think, because product thinking is kind of a more intuitive way of thinking, and the system thinking, and then it's something probably a little bit less intuitive. If you combine both, it gives you a kind of fuller perspective and data point to make decisions. So I really want to encourage people to try to apply both of them. But maybe can I just sneak in another one? It's about the career path since we talk about it at the very end of it, and I just wanted to close in with that. I feel like as a PM, throughout your career, there will be a decision point for you to thinking about, do you want to continue with a super IC or go into a product leadership part? And the really big decision there is really depends on your strengths and passions within the operational kind of capability, more and strategy capability. But strategy, as we mentioned before, from the when you make the jump, it's actually not a big ratio difference, but really be curious about your interests, about the operational side, and actually experiments a little bit around that side. I think will helping you to make some your career decisions there as well. All right, should we close?
Yeah, I think we'll mention a couple of books. Melissa Perry's kind of product operations, Simon Sinek's Start With Why. I think we even touched on kind of Daniel Kahneman's Thinking Fast and Slow. So we'll put some links if anyone's interested in kind of deeper diving into those. Anything else we want to share?
Well, the most important link we will share is actually the Medium blog we finally wrote around this our framework, and to provide, I guess, our audience a little bit more kind of a visual view about what this model actually is and how to apply them. So we will definitely put that link there. I guess I will share all of my other goodies in the next episode, because I'm just conscious about it is already an hour. So, but I do have some really good books recommendations in the next episode. Please listen. What about you, Kiet?
Looking forward to it. I think that's it for me. I'm nerding out about kind of sci-fi at the moment, but running out of time. So
all right, that could be the episode.
Get my kids to school.
Okay, that's more important. All right, thank you so much for listening. All right, cheers.
See you guys.
Bye.